Dear friends, now let's continue with the second chapter of this day. We are going to discuss energy and the environment. That will be moderated by journalist Mr. Kalarrytis. Two remarks. I would like to ask those of you who follow this conference online, use the special box next to your screen to submit your questions in order for the moderator to be able to see them and ask them to the distinguished speakers. And Mrs. Koundouri, whose name is on the agenda, due to illness, she will not be able to make it, unfortunately. But yesterday, she recorded a speech for this panel that will be shown during this session. Mr. Kalarrytis, you have the floor. I would like to thank the speakers, so the floor is yours. Hello, thank you, Mr. Balakakis, and congratulations for organizing this event, which is very timely and will remain timely for the years to come. So, everything that has been said and will be said today is very important and will contribute in shaping the way of thinking in Greece, since we are on a transition period. But this period will be accompanied by a general transit period, which means that it is not easy to manage. If the people of the industry had to make decisions taking into consideration various factors, nowadays this is even more complex, since they have to take into consideration parameters that also touch upon other industries, such as geopolitics, security, financial reasons, social and political reasons. It might be the first time that there is a coincidence of risk. We have a risk in the supply chain, risk, energy risk, social crisis that is also translated in a political crisis. I would like to start this discussion by thanking the speakers, Dr. Konstantinos Aravossis, who is Secretary General for Forestry, Ministry of Environment and Energy, Dr. Phoebe Koundouri, the co-chair of SDSN Europe, professors at the Athens University, Dr. Nikolas Farantouris, Monet Professor of EU Law, and Mr. Konstantinos Chatzifotis, Manager of European Affairs of the Motel Oil Group. I would like to give the floor to Dr. Konstantinos Aravossis. Dr. Aravossis, you have the floor. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this very important and interesting conference. And this session that we are going to discuss about the energy and the environment touches upon all the sectors of this conference. So, something that we can all understand is that the great problem of our era is climate crisis. We experience it on an everyday basis, not only in Greece but also abroad. We had the mega fires 2 years ago, but also the previous years, more intense compared to what has been happening maybe the previous 10 years. We also see great floods. We experience big floods. And of course, this affects citizens' everyday lives, and they also have not only environmental, but also social and economic consequences. So after this session, I am going to Egypt to participate at the COP27, the International Conference on Climate, since it is evident that only with international agreements we could reduce emissions. In Greece, a lot of steps forward have been made since it is the central policy of the government, the tackling climate changes and environment. Moreover, the Prime Minister himself from day one worked very hard towards this direction. And for the first time in Greece, there is a national climate law. We are amongst the first group of countries that has such a law for decarbonization, for climate neutrality until 2050, and for an intermediate goal in 2030 to reduce by 50%, which means that our national plan for energy and climate will be reviewed based on specific policies that will lead us to this goal. I know that the distinguished speakers are going to discuss that, to change the energy mix and to reach the adoption of renewable energy sources leaving behind traditional fuels. Nevertheless, since I am here today as Secretary General of Forests, let me say that forests may play a very important role, a crucial role in reducing emissions. Between forests, they help into reducing the CO footprint and also the pollutants that are related to climate change. But on the other hand, the climate law mentions specifically the forests, and according to this law, one could compensate the emissions. I am talking about non-ECTS formal system, the non-formal system that will allow companies to compensate their emissions with forestations and reforestations. This is the first step, and the other step is the fact that forests can help us to adapt to climate change. Before talking about our policies, I would like to say that when it comes to circular economy, which is at the epicenter of environmental policy, that we have a roadmap for circular economy, a 3-year roadmap that is aligned with the European roadmap for the circular economy. This roadmap includes 72 goals in specific areas for sustainable production, sustainable consumption, waste management, and generally our goal is to reform our economy and go towards circularity. This is the big stake, and this is why from the National Strategic Reference Framework has given us 700 million euros that will help businesses and all stakeholders to adapt and to try to change our economy and go towards a circular economy. Now let's discuss the forests. There is a General Secretary of Forests. This is a reformation that started from Kyriakos Mitsotakis, our Prime Minister himself, and from the beginning of 2022 there is a General Directorate of Forests that includes the management of the Forest Department. So there is a new verticalized structure that can decide on the forest policies, and our first priority is, of course, prevention. This year, for the first time, we have conducted prevention projects. We tried to clean forests, and I'm talking about 100,000 stremas, and we tried to open forest roads, and we also tried to do fire zones in Greece with a budget of 70 million euros that was funded by the Recovery Fund, but also by the state budget. For the first time, something similar happened, and the previous years, the relevant budget was 7 or 8 million. So you understand that there is this huge investment with projects that moved forward very quickly and contributed to avoid having this last summer negative consequences from fires. Nevertheless, the reforestation after the natural disasters or other measures, we have a new framework that allows us to make anti-flood and anti-erosion projects, works that we have done during the previous year in Evia, where we had the consequences from the mega fires, and it was finished in a record time, anti-flood and anti-erosion works projects that they are going to protect us from the huge rainfalls that are expected due to the climate crisis, as mentioned in the beginning. For the first time, there is a national reforestation plan that is funded by the Recovery Fund of 200 million euros. This is a huge project, a huge area of 170,000 stremas for the first time are going to be reforested during the next 3 years. This is already planned, and we have secured funding, and now we are going to start the first pilot reforestations within November. We should also mention that it is not possible to achieve our goals, not only when it comes to forests, but also our general goals, if we are not going to adapt new innovative cutting-edge technologies, which means that we should have the ministries interconnected, as well as all the organizations connected with the academia, with universities, with research organizations, but also companies, businesses that offer innovative solutions, and to include them in our policies on environmental protection. I'm going to mention an example on forests. We focus on the so-called smart sustainable forest. We want to include innovative technologies in the various activities related to the forest ecosystem management, but also to prevention, but also to the restoration of the forests. As you may well know, technology allows us to have real-time satellite images using drones, using sensors, using cameras, thermal and optic cameras that allow us to monitor a forest area and to be aware of all the environmental conditions at every point within the forest. So the forest managers will be able to monitor forests using modern technologies that have already planned to be introduced in these new policies. Since this conference is related, I would like to mention circular economy. We have the circular economy roadmap in place, which dictates that the same or more products should be produced in order to cover our consumer needs, but on the other hand, to produce less waste or to reach the zero waste society, so to say. So waste should be used as a raw material, and of course that will allow us to save raw material and save energy, of course. Energy should not be forgotten within this life cycle, and of course that will allow us to reduce costs, but also to make our economy and our industry competitive. This roadmap is in place, as I have told you, and especially when it comes to agri-food businesses, The principle of circular economy can help those businesses reduce the water that they use, for example. Through recycling and reusing, a business may save a lot of energy, save a lot of water. On the other hand, one can utilize biomass and agri-waste, and our priority is also one of biomass. I apologize, is also one of our priorities, since biomass can be used not only as a fuel, but also as an alternative fuel, as I have told you, but on the other hand, in various processes that for energy production, and that energy can be used by various businesses to cover their needs. Nevertheless, bioeconomy is a new sector. We have a lot of new developments, and this is why I have mentioned innovation. And biomass can also be used for producing bioethanol in bioreactors, and therefore save energy. And of course, that way we can reach our goal to change economy as a whole, not only the agri-food economy, but also other sectors of the Greek economy towards this new circular standard that will allow us to minimize the use of raw material, of resources, and become more competitive, but at the same time we will be able to use clean energy through renewables or through other forms with the help of technology. So we're going to save energy and use that energy throughout the whole chain, from mining to processing and production and consuming. And last but not least, we should focus on awareness raising and education of all the stakeholders on those issues that we discuss here today. It is very important to put emphasis on awareness raising amongst the citizens, but also informing the industry and all economic stakeholders. And of course, we should support them with financial means, funding tools. And I want to stress that we have a lot of funding available that can help us towards this transformation of the Greek economy with the new standards, in order to have competitive advantage also in the energy sector, but at the same time being leaders in protecting the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aravossis, for those remarks. We will release you because I know that you also have to attend the Egypt Summit on Climate. I would just like to underline the importance of the Forestry Agency. That's a very important absence from our system, and we believe that central management can lead to better management. We know that high penetration of technology is also needed. We know that for the past years we didn't have this financing. When it comes to the circular management of the entire process, those are the pillars that I believe will make the difference if you continue implementing them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, next speaker, Dr. Nikolas Farantouris. He's a professor and holder of the Jean Monet Professor at the EU on EU law. Professor, you have the floor. I would like to warmly thank the organizers for giving me this extraordinary opportunity to address this audience about a highly timely issue affecting the entire globe. The agri-food sector is inextricably linked to Greek economy, Greek rural areas, And I would like to mention that I find myself here today in another capacity because I'm also a producer of wine from Kefalonia Island, so I'm here wearing both hats. I would like to share the fact that I'm a producer myself because this means that I have first-hand knowledge of all the problems faced by either small or medium-sized production units in the agri-food sector. I'm very much aware of what happens in terms of the energy cost and the financing problems. So, let me elaborate on the first aspect for a few minutes, then I'm going to also talk about the second point for a couple of minutes more, and I would like to share my conclusions and experiences. We know that the energy cost is something that affects the entire supply chain. This is a major point of concern that we need to capitalize on in order to become wiser about the role that the state should undertake in order to tackle the energy inflation. Because we know that if the energy cost is indeed has rather been too much to take for households, you can imagine its repercussions in the agri-food sector. I'm afraid that if the right interventions don't take place, we will see hundreds of businesses going bankrupt and closing down in the agri-food sector. Now, energy costs. My proposal is to adopt smart regulatory, auditing and supervisory measures. We cannot stand living on allowances in this country. Resources are limited, and we should opt for far-sighted policies rather than short-sighted ones. Our goal here is not to boost just the small manufacturing units, etc. We also need to support the households, because if we're not able to tame the high costs, the high prices, I'm afraid that this is a problem that will keep going on for many, many years. So those are the types of measures that should be adopted. When I talk about smart regulatory measures, I'm talking about targeted tax reductions. 10 days ago, the IMF published a table showing that all countries around the world, both in the developed and the developing world, all of them, with no exceptions, when faced with escalation of energy prices, opted for one thing: they reduced indirect taxes. I believe that this is something that should be considered by the government. We need to focus on the energy cost rather than the energy sufficiency. For the time being, we are not being faced with this problem. And I believe that we tend to consume ourselves so much in terms of energy sufficiency, whether we'll have natural gas access, etc., whether we will have to dim the lights and close the lights entirely. Anyway, okay, all those things are for the best, of course, but special emphasis in terms of public dialogue should be laid not on the fact of whether we need to establish a committee in order to close down or dim the lights at schools, but in order to adopt other measures that will be able to deliver results in the long and short term. So, those fiscal interventions in combination with smart regulatory measures are the way to go. And we believe that the state should try to tackle the source of the problem, the wholesale price of energy, because this is where companies try to maximize their profit margins. And let's face it, some of the market players enjoy and yield skyrocketing profit. Okay, I'm not here to judge why they have this profit, but they do have this profit, they do yield this profit that is incompatible with the strenuous position of the agri-food sector today. Direct intervention is required, reallocation of resources is required. And in order to talk about the third aspect of the measures we talked about, has to do with control and audit. Because, okay, we know that the market, or rather the market, has been considered to address its problems on its own, but this is not the case. This has not been fruitful. We see the repercussions in our families, in our households, and we need the right supervision of those measures that should be implemented. Cartels, illicit trade, competition, unfair competition, distortions, all these things should be discussed and considered, because all these things lead to the repercussions we experience today. We say that natural gas prices drop, but the fact that this cost moves on and is transferred throughout the entire supply chain, just like moisture that eats up the walls of a building and at the end is going to collapse. If no immediate measures are not taken, I'm afraid that over the next 2 years we will be faced with high prices and, of course, too high energy costs for our units. Despite the crisis and despite the problems that we have been faced with, and despite the exacerbation of the energy crisis and the distortions I mentioned before regarding our national market, we are also being faced with a huge financing gap for those businesses. I'm talking about the agri-food sector businesses. Greek farmers don't have access to bank lending. We consider that there is a 10 to 14 billion euro gap. And therefore, an initiative is required, an initiative that cannot stem from the market. It should come from the state. The other aspect of this deficit has to do with the extremely high interest rates we see in that sector. They are higher than all the other European countries. They vary from 4 to 8%. All those things show that a critical sector of the Greek economy, because it is the backbone of our society, of our social cohesion, lacks funding, lacks access to bank lending. So we should be aware of all those things and adopt the right measures. Thank you very much, Mr. Farantouris. Both issues that were brought forward are critical, just like you said, both the energy costs. You say that you are two hands, head of the professor and the producer, so you do realize that the cost is a catalyst. If this remains unresolved and unaddressed, then the year 2023, we will see the private sector being faced with unsurmountable obstacles and problems. When it comes to supporting the primary sector, I fully agree with you. It's not just that we are lacking financing and funding. There's a lack of information regarding the direction that the primary sector should follow in our country. We know that this sector in Greece has some advantages, but given that not all those who are involved in the primary sector know what happens all around the globe or which are the beneficial marks around the globe, this means that right now there is no specific instructions, directions with regards to the orientation that the market should adopt. People opt for the tested solutions because they believe that there are no other options that are promising, whereas Greece can have an added value, does have things to add and contribute. There is also another paradox. Farmers grow the crops and then are in the lookout for the right market rather than doing the contrary. Now, let's give the floor now to our next speaker, Mr. Konstantinos Chatzifotis. He's the manager of European Affars at the Group of Motor.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Καλησπέρα σε όλους.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank Mr. Balakakis, my friend Yanis, for the opportunity that he is giving me to participate today at this forum, in this AgriBusiness Forum. His commitment that I know firsthand in showcasing the risks and the challenges of the agri-food sector in Greece is great, and in our country, which is a structural inefficiency, the present and the future of the agri-food sector is but a detail on the agenda of the public sphere and is only faced when we have strikes of the farmers. And this new CAP gives opportunities for public dialogue, but it is not done. Allow me to start with personal reference. It is with great happiness that I am here today at this building. I have been working here. I have been working at the Greek Parliament in 2012. I was in Brussels with Mr. Papastankou, who was member of the Commission of the Agricultural Issues, and we have invited Mr. Dole to present to the Greek public the challenges when it comes to the new CAP, that they remain the same, unfortunately, 10 years later, which means that the modernization of the farming production and tackling this challenge of food safety, which back then, 10 years earlier, we have started to see the first implications. Of course, we had pressures from the international markets, so we understand that we do not have in Greece a very good framework in order to discuss those issues. AgriBusiness Forum gives this opportunity to us, and therefore I would like to thank Yanis for this opportunity to be here today. So this issue of food safety, as we can see today, goes hand in hand with the energy safety, and of course they are results of the war in Ukraine, and we are certain to say that this will be the next world crisis. Those challenges can be tackled only with a holistic strategy and planning, and the lack of which are problems in Greece, and now they became problems of Europe as well. When it comes to the energy sector, motor oil is a leading business, and this is why I want to give the perspective of the industry, of a leading power, which is leading the energy transition in Greece and the southeastern Europe and the eastern Mediterranean. Our group has got a strategy and remains focused on the implementation of its growth plan in order to continue to meet the national needs. Last Friday, we have celebrated half a century of continuous value creation, jobs creation, sustainable growth, and contributing a lot of in the gross domestic product, social contribution, and environmental responsibility. Our organization now has got to continue in an environment that we need, first of all, the energy security, accessibility and differentiation, and on the other hand, the acceleration of the energy transition towards a zero emissions economy. Motor oil is promoting projects that have as a goal to increase the energy security of the country, to reduce the energy cost, and at the same time reduce the CO2 emissions. Our investment in growth plan is more than 1 billion euros of those 3 last years, and we have a presence in 8 countries with exports that reach 80% of our production in third countries outside the European Union. More specifically, our investments right now by motor oil can be segregated in 4 pillars and relate to the whole value chain of the energy, both vertically. They are related to the energy and digital improvement of the refinement in order for the refineries to be more effective, such as photovoltaics in order to support their energy needs, and they are the first such improvement. The asset of motor oil in Athens, it is the largest industrial site in Greece. We also want to see if we can implement a project on carbon capture and storage, and we have already been doing a digital transformation in our group and in our other companies. Another very important strategy in our investment plan is e-mobility. Through our energy, our subsidiary company, Motor Oil, has been developing the biggest network of electric mobility in Balkans, and we want to have installed 3,000 chargers until 2025. And at the same time, we have been planning and implementing the fuel station of the future, because in the future, stations will not only have fuels, but also will allow someone to charge with electricity, to have hydrogen, to offer hydrogen. So we have to see how are those stations are going to be revamped. Another very important pillar, and I would like to focus here, is the renewable and transitional energy. Motor Oil Group, within 3 years, have managed to reach a goal, a 5-year goal, and namely to reach 1 gigawatt in energy productions by renewables, to produce 1 gigawatt from green energy by renewables. And after buying Elector, we have done a lot of things, and we are trying to reach this goal. The portfolio of licenses that we have as Motorola is 2.5 gigawatt, and this is a goal that we want to implement within the next 10 years. More, which is the organizations that manages photovoltaics, will have 130 million EBITDA, and we have invested capital of 1.6 billion euros. So our company's plans, apart from the renewables, want to develop systems to store energy and to focus on wind farms. In Komotini, we're implementing a very modern station with gas, with natural gas, in collaboration with the Yakterna, and the total cost of the investment is estimated at 375 million euros, and during this project we have created 500 jobs, and when it will be operating, we will create 100 more jobs. Moreover, something also very timely, Motorola has been developing the project of the Origa gas, which is a strategic project of international importance. We are at the last stage of the study in order to construct this floating unit for storing and regassing FSRU that will contribute to the energy security of not only Greece but also Europe, making Greece an energy hub in the wider area. I would like to say that what we are planning to do in Agioi Theodori, it will serve central and southern Greece, is placed strategically, protected there, and also can support our other big project that we have, that Greece has as an entrance point. Something else that is of great importance, and during the last days, during the last period, is also very much promoted, are alternative fuels and circular economy. The Secretary General has said a lot of things about that. Our group is a leader in investment and in this renewable sector, first of all by utilizing bio-waste and sub-products of plant and animal origin in order to produce energy and new fuels which are more environmental friendly. We have already starting to produce and market hydrogen, which is also produced in our refineries, but we want to produce green hydrogen without CO emissions during its productions, and we want within the next 5 years to have ready-to-use hydrogen and to market it in Greece. We also work on circular economy and energy by waste, using waste. Our strategy for the sustainable waste management is based on 2 pillars: in reusing products and by recycling, and in the energy utilization of other sources. We have bought recently Ellinvert, which has the biggest collection network of used oils, and at the same time we have the largest unit of regenerations of oil waste in Europe. Last but not least, I would like to mention some other things that we have been considering. On a European level, it is evident that electricity, hydrogen, biofuel are the future of the energy needs of the agricultural productions, from vehicles and other machinery in the energy needs of the greenhouses till the production of green hydrogen for fertilizers. We also believe that projects for agri-photovoltaics are very interesting. When it comes to biofuels, and according to the EU regulations, we believe that biofuels can be a very good solution. It is also, we also want to see the residue biomass, not only for producing energy, but also for producing second-generation biofuels, as well as the processing of animal byproducts that will give a solution to a very difficult problem for the public health. Mr. Koutouris and Mr. Secretary General have already mentioned those solutions. Biogas production is very developed in Greece, but it is now more interesting since we can transform it in biomethane and then use it as biogas. In the circular economy, the challenges that we have to tackle is the recycling of plastics that are used in farming, such as the plastics of the greenhouses, the packaging of the pesticides and other products. Last but not least, the future challenges will be the irrigation projects. And first of all, when it comes to improving the energy needs and the possibility that we have to produce energy by irrigation works, and maybe what is very interesting is how we are going to manage water per se. Dear friends, all that I have mentioned about the energy transformation of motor oil is maybe the largest and most ambitious framework of a Greek company that is already at place. However, investment in sectors such as the green hydrogen that cannot be marketed in Greece have a very high risk, and if we want as a national system to be aligned with the European partners, we need to have adequate funding tools and motives. We need a contemporary framework and a holistic strategy. And if we want as a union to be energy secure and independent, but also competitive, we need to redefine the goals and also to be more decisive. Despite the 10-year financial crisis, despite the 2 years of the pandemic, Motor Oil Group has managed to remain focused on this transition on the new energy environment through we want always to be leaders, and we want to shape the developments in the energy sector in Greece, but also the wider Eastern Mediterranean area. I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ τον κύριο Chatzifotis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chatzifotis. We know that our country is going through transformation and is already transforming to become an energy hub as well as a network or grid hub. I'm talking about the various LNG corridors, the various power production plants, and so we also aspire to becoming an energy producer in order to safeguard rather the energy security of the European Union. We do hope that we'll be able to live up to those expectations. We know that if this energy transition project and of Greece and its transformation into an energy hub is accomplished, you do realize that we'll find ourselves on an entirely different level. Therefore, the leaders, such as Motor Oil Group, will need to lead the way. Now, Ms. Koundouri, will also share her messages through the pre-recorded message. It is with great pleasure that I find myself as a speaker here in the AgriBusiness Forum. I am Phoebe Koundouri. I'm a professor at the Athens University of Economics and Business. Today, I'm here in order to talk about a major initiative that I coordinate. I'm going to talk about the UN SDSN Global Climate Hub. So it is a global hub for climate. It falls under the UN network that focuses on solutions about sustainable development. And I have been lucky enough to collaborate with accomplished colleagues all around the world in order to develop a structure that will try to support all countries around the globe in order for them to develop detailed pathways to move towards climate neutrality and resilience. It is amidst this mesh of crises we've been faced with, the pandemic, the financial crisis, with the inflation trends, the climate change, the collapse of all the ecosystems, a war that further aggravates food security, food crisis, as well as the population crisis and the inequality crisis that we're currently going through. Personally, I am convinced that there is a blueprint, there is a manual, and the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations has set 17 goals and 169 sub-goals with hundreds of KPIs in order to measure and assess the implementation of those goals at national, local levels, or even at the level of each business. Therefore, it is a systematic and comprehensive framework in the context of which we will be able to develop technological, political, and financing solutions. Those solutions can give a great boost towards this transition to sustainability. This means that we'll be able to address and tackle all the crises that we're being faced with simultaneously. And it is exactly in this context that the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IFORIA operates with 5 research sites for social and technological innovation accelerators, as well as with deeply rooted collaborations with international and European networks. And I am either the lead or co-chair of many of them, and that's a great source of pleasure for myself and an honor. And I also participate in the World Academy of Science, Academia Europea, and the Inter-Academy Partnership. It is in this framework and in the context of the projects that have been funded through the Alliance of Excellence for Research Innovation and IFORIA project, we have the creation of the UN Solutions Network on Sustainable Development, because it aims at providing advice, at developing extensive and detailed programs for every country. All these things will be based and rely on science so that every country will be able to structure the data and the technologies they have available so that they can get as fast as possible to climate neutrality. I do apologize, I'm not there with you because as I return from COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh, where I literally run a 14 speeches marathon, I contracted
Και αυτός είναι ο
COVID,
μόνος λόγος που δεν
and
είμαι
that's the
εκεί
only reason that
μαζί
keeps me
σας,
away from
αλλά
you
και ο
today.
λόγος που έπρεπε οπωσδήποτε
And
να
this is
είμαι
the
στην
reason
COP27
why
για να
I
αναδείξουμε
had to
την
be
δυναμική
there at
προσφορά αυτού του
COP27 in
Climate Hub.
order to
Κάθε χρόνο
highlight
το
the contribution of this
UNSDSN μετράει
climate
τους
hub.
στόχους,
Every year,
την
the
εφαρμογή των στόχων σε κάθε
SDR
χώρα, όπως
network
σας είπα. Αυτή είναι η
measures
εικόνα
the
του
achievement of the
2022
goals.
για το
This is
στόχο
the image for the year
13 που αφορά το
2022
Climate Action,
about
όπου
the
βλέπετε
goal number
κόκκινα
13 in
είμαστε
climate
με
action.
μεγάλες
Everything that
προκλήσεις
is
να
marked in
παραμένουμε
red
για την
means
εφαρμογή
that it
του,
is too challenging, and there are many
στόχου,
challenges ahead of
όπου
us for the
βλέπετε
accomplishment of
πράσινο
the
ο
goal.
στόχος έχει
The green
επιτευχθεί.
color
Και
means that the
αυτή
goal
είναι η
has been
κατάσταση
achieved.
σήμερα και αυτό είναι η
That's the current
προέκταση της
situation,
κατάστασης στο
and that's the
2030. Άρα, αν
extension of
συνεχίσουμε
the
όπως είμαστε
situation for the
σήμερα,
years
το 2030 δεν θα
2023-2030.
είμαστε σε
So,
θέση
if
για
we
πλήρη
stay on the
εφαρμογή
same
του
track,
στόχου
we
ανά το
will not be
παγκόσμιο.
ready to meet those
Και
goals in 2030.
ευρύτερα, αυτό που βλέπουμε είναι ότι ναι,
And
υπάρχει πρόοδος.
we see that, yes,
Αυτή τη στιγμή
indeed,
αυτό που
progress
περιμένουμε
has
από την
been made.
COP27 που θα
What
τελειώσει
we
στο τέλος
expect
αυτής της
from
εβδομάδας
COP27
είναι
that
ότι
is nearing
αν
completion by the end
μετρήσουμε
of this
όλα
week, we will see that
τις
if we sum
υποσχέσεις
up
των χωρών
all the
όσον
promises
αφορά
undertaken by
την
member
κλιματική
states regarding
ουδετερότητα, θα
climate
μπορούμε να πούμε
neutrality,
ότι
we will
είμαστε
be
στο
in a
συν
safe position to
1,5,
say
ότι
that
δεν
we're
θα
in plus
ξεπεράσουμε το συν
1.2,
1,5
or that we will
σε
not
σχέση με τη
exceed
θερμοκρασία, τη μέση
1.5 in terms of the
θερμοκρασία του
average
πλανήτη,
temperature
όπως
of
αυτή
the
ήταν
planet
στην προβιομηχανική
as it had
εποχή.
been
Και δεν θέλουμε να το
prevalent in the
ξεπεράσουμε
pre-industrial era.
μέχρι και το τέλος του αιώνα. Και βέβαια
And
δεν
we
θέλουμε να το
don't want to
ξεπεράσουμε
exceed
ποτέ,
that by
αλλά
the end of
θέλουμε
the
να είμαστε
century. And of
σίγουροι ότι
course,
το
this is
projection
an
μέχρι το τέλος
everlasting
του
goal,
αιώνα
but we
δεν
need
ξεπερνάει το
to
1,5.
ensure that the
Η
projection
αλήθεια
by the
είναι
end of the
ότι
century will not go
είναι
beyond
εφικτό
1.5.
να πείσουμε
To be
τις
frank, it
χώρες
is
να
feasible to
δώσουν
persuade
αυτές τις
countries
υποσχέσεις.
to
Ποια
make
είναι
this
αυτό?
pledge.
Μπορεί να
It
μην
is
ήταν πριν
visible
5
now.
χρόνια, αλλά τώρα
Maybe
πια
50 years
καμία
ago
σχεδόν
it was
χώρα
not
δεν θα πει
visible, but
ότι
today
δεν
no
αναγνωρίζει την
country will say
κλιματική
that
αλλαγή
no,
πρόβλημα,
I don't
δεν
think that
αναγνωρίζω
climate
ότι
change is
κράτη
a
πρέπει να
problem
κάνουν γι'
or that
αυτό.
climate crisis is something
Θα
to be
κάνω,
addressed
θα
or that no
υποσχεθώ
action
ότι θα
should be
μειώσω
taken.
τα CO2
Yes, of
emissions μου.
course,
Θα
everyone will
υποσχεθώ
say
ότι θα
that they need
μειώσω
to cut back on their
τις
CO2
εκπομπές
emissions.
μεθανίου. Αυτή
They
τη
need to
στιγμή
reduce the
έχουμε 100
methane emissions.
χώρες
Right
που
now,
έχουν
we have
υποσχεθεί
100
climate
countries
neutrality
that have
μέχρι το
pledged for
2050,
climate neutrality by
κάποιες πιο
2050.
γρήγορα από το
Some of them will
2050
get there
και έχουμε την Κίνα
before
που
2050. We also
2060,
have
Ινδία
China
2070.
for
Η
2060
δυσκολία
and
όμως ποια είναι?
India
Και αυτή ακριβώς
that
τη
will reach
δυσκολία
this goal by
έρχεται να θεραπεύσει
2070.
το
But
Global
what's the hard
Climate Hub.
part
Η
here?
δυσκολία είναι
Well,
ότι είναι
the
ένα πράγμα να
adversity here
υπόσχεσαι
is
μια
that making the
κλιματική
pledge is
ουδετερότητα
one thing,
μέχρι το 2050 και πολύ
pledging about
διαφορετικό
climate
να
neutrality by
εφαρμόσεις
2050,
τα
and
βήματα ούτως
implementing
ώστε να
all the
γίνει
steps that are
εφικτή.
required to
Γι' αυτό
take you there.
ακριβώς κάνουμε σε
That's
αυτό το
another
hub.
story. This is what we're
Σε
trying to do through
συνεργασία
this hub.
με τα 1750
In collaboration
πανεπιστήμια
with
που είναι
1,700
μέλη
universities,
στο
more or less,
Sustainable
that are
Development
members of the
Solutions Network,
Sustainable Development
τα οποία
Solutions
είναι
Network,
διασπαρμένα σε όλες τις
and
χώρες
they're
του κόσμου,
scattered all
θα
around the globe,
συσχεδιάσουμε
we will
τα μονοπάτια,
co-design
τα
the
εθνικά και τα
national pathways
περιφερειακά
and the
μονοπάτια
regional
τεχνολογίας,
pathways
πολιτικής και
of technology,
χρηματοοικονομικής
politics,
υποστήριξης, ούτως
and
ώστε να
financial
μπορέσουν οι
support.
χώρες να κάνουν αυτή τη
All that
μετάβαση.
with a
Άρα
view
μιλούμε
to
για
supporting
πολύ
countries
λεπτομερή
in
δουλειά.
making this
Αυτή η
transition. We
δουλειά
talk about a
θα
highly meticulous work.
πάντα γίνεται στο
And
συστημικό
this is something
πλαίσιο
that has
των
always been
17
undertaken in the
στόχων
systemic
και των
framework of the
7
17 goals
μετασχηματισμών που
and
πρέπει
the
να
7
υλοποιηθούν τόσο
transformations
ώστε
that
οι
should be
στόχοι 17
implemented
να
in
εφαρμοστούν.
order
Οι
for those 17
μετασχηματισμοί
goals to be
αφορούν
implemented.
την
Those
εκπαίδευση,
transformations
την
have
υγεία,
to do
την
with education,
απορριγνητοποίηση
health,
της
the lignite
βιομηχανίας,
phase out
την
of the industry,
αειφόρο διαχείριση της
sustainable
παραγωγής τροφίμων,
management of
της γης, του
food
νερού και των
production,
ωκεανών, την
use
αηφόρο
of water in
ανάπτυξη
the
των
ocean,
πόλεων και
sustainable
των
development of
κοινοτήτων, καθώς
cities
επίσης
and
και την
communities,
ψηφιοποίηση.
as well as the digitization.
Το hub μας έχει 9
Now,
διαφορετικές
our
μονάδες και
hub
αυτά οι 9
hosts
διαφορετικές
9
μονάδες
different units.
δείχνουν
Those
ακριβώς
9
πως
different
κάποιος
units
πρέπει
show
να
that it is
διαχειριστεί
high
την
time
ανάπτυξη αυτών των
someone
μονοπατιών για
managed
κλιματική ουδετερότητα.
the
Η πρώτη
collaboration
μονάδα
among those
αφορά
units. The first unit
τα δεδομένα για το
has to
κλίμα
do with
και
data about
ψηφιακές
climate as well
πλατφόρμες
as the digital
οι οποίες
platforms
χρησιμοποιούνται για να μαζεύουν και να
that are being
χρησιμοποιούν τα
used to
δεδομένα.
collect
Η
and to
δεύτερη
use data.
μονάδα αφορά
The
την
second unit
ατμοσφαιρική
has to do
φυσική, η
with
οποία είναι στο
atmospheric
υπόβαθρο
physics,
αυτών των μονοπατιών προς την
which is the
κλιματική
background
ουδετερότητα.
against
Η
which all
τρίτη
those pathways are being
μοντελοποίηση
built on.
της ενέργειας και του κλίματος.
Thirdly,
Η
we have the
ενέργεια είναι
climate and
το
energy modeling.
βασικό,
We
ένα από τα δύο
know that
βασικά
energy
συστήματα
is one of the two
το οποίο πρέπει
main
να
systems
μετασχηματιστεί ούτως ώστε να
that
πάμε σε
should be
κλιματική
transformed in
ουδετερότητα. Το
order
τέταρτο
to
αφορά τη
reach
χρήση γης
climate neutrality.
και
The
το
third
κλίμα.
has to do
Το
with land
πέμπτο
use and
την
climate.
υγεία και το κλίμα. Το
The
έκτο
fifth
αφορά
unit
την
has to do with
καινοτομία και την
climate and health.
επιτάχυνση
Six has to do
αυτής,
with
ούτως ώστε
innovation, the
οι λύσεις για
acceleration of
κλιματική
innovation,
ουδετερότητα να έρθουν
so
στην αγορά.
that we can have
Το
climate neutral and resilient solutions.
η επόμενη μονάδα αφορά την
The
οικονομική
next unit
ανάλυση
has to
της
do with the
μετάβασης, ποιες
financial
πολιτικές,
analysis
ποιες
of this transition, which
ποιες
are the
είναι οι
policies, which are
επιπτώσεις
the
στην
financing
αγορά
modalities,
εργασίας,
which are the
ποια οικονομικά
consequences
εργαλεία
on
πρέπει
labor
να
market, which are the financial
χρησιμοποιηθούν,
tools that
ποια
should be used,
επενδύσεις πρέπει να
which
χρηματοδοτηθούν
are
και
the
από πού.
investments that should be funded and by whom.
Το 8ο unit αφορά τα
The eighth
λεγόμενα
unit
ζωντανά
has to do
εργαστήρια
with
που θα
so-called
δημιουργηθούν σε
living
κάθε
lamps
χώρα
that will be
σε
created
εθνικό επίπεδο,
in every
ούτως ώστε
country.
να
They will be created at a
συσχεδιάσουν
national
όλοι οι
level so
stakeholders
that
τα
all
μονοπάτια,
stakeholders
ούτως ώστε όλοι οι stakeholders
co-design
να
those
νιώθουν
pathways.
κάτοχοι
This
αυτών των
means that all
μονοπατιών,
stakeholders
να
will feel
νιώθουν
like
ότι
they
αυτοί τα
own
σχεδιάσανε
the
και άρα
pathway,
όταν
will feel
έρθει η
like it's
ώρα της
their own baby.
εφαρμογής
So
να
when the
είναι
time comes to
θετικοί
implement
ως
them,
προς την εφαρμογή, να
they
έχουν τη
will be
γνώση
more than
αλλά
positive
και
or
την
eager to implement them. They will also
σιγουριά
have the
ότι η
knowledge and the
εφαρμογή τους
confidence,
θα
and the
οδηγήσει
implementation
στην
of those
κλιματική
pathways
ουδετερότητα
will
με
lead
τρόπο
to
που
climate
αυτούς
neutrality.
δεν θα τους επιβαρύνει, με
All
τρόπο που θα
that
τους
in a
προστατεύει και
way
κοινωνικά
that
και
will
οικονομικά και
offer social,
περιβαλλοντικά. Και το
financial,
τελευταίο μας
environmental
unit είναι
protection.
το unit που
Our
αφορά
last unit
την
is a unit
παιδεία,
that has to do with
την
education,
επιμόρφωση
training,
και της ανάπτυξη δεξιοτήτων που θα είναι
upskilling, and
σημαντικά,
reskilling.
ούτως ώστε
Because we talk about
κάποιος
the development of
stakeholder
skills
να
that are
μπορέσει να γίνει
important
μέρος
for those
αυτής
stakeholders
της μετάβασης.
to be part of this
Κάθε
transition
unit
process.
έχει τη δική του ομάδα,
Every
τα δικά
unit
του
has its
έργα,
own
τους
team,
δικούς του
its own
παγκόσμιους
projects,
collaborators,
its own
συνεργάτες
global
και έχει
collaborators and
ήδη
associates.
αναπτύξει τους τρόπους με
And
τους
it has
οποίους
also
θα
developed its
πορευτεί.
own
Παραδείγματος
ways
χάρη
to
το
move
data
forward.
unit,
For
μιλάμε
example,
για ήδη μια
in the case of
μεγάλη
data
υποδομή
unit, we talk about a major infrastructure
δεδομένων, η οποία
of
υποστηρίζεται από
things
το
that
OpenAI, τη
are being
βασική πλατφόρμα
supported
της
by
Ευρώπης
the
για
open platform of
επιστήμη.
Europe.
Και αυτή η πλατφόρμα,
And
η οποία είναι
this platform
AI-driven, είναι
is
artificial intelligence
AI-driven,
driven
meaning
πλατφόρμα, θα
artificial
αποτελέσει και
intelligence-driven.
το είναι βάση
So
δεδομένων
this
και
platform will
ανάλυσης
be the
για το Global
database
Climate Hub. Και
for
επίσης
the
να πω
Global
ότι
Climate Hub.
ήδη έχουμε
I would also
αρχίσει
like to
με μια
say that we
μεγάλη
have
βάση
already
δεδομένων,
started
η
with
οποία
an
έχει
extensive
μαζέψει
database
εκατομμύρια σχετικά
that has accumulated
datasets,
millions of relevant
αποτελέσματα,
data sets,
δημοσιευμένα
results that
papers,
are the
policy
publication
papers
form
που
of
αφορούν
papers
τα
or
SDGs
policy
και
papers
βέβαια
that have to do with
το SDG
SDGs.
Climate Action,
And of course the SDG
σχεδόν
climate
1,5
actions
εκατομμύριο research projects.
that
Αν τα βάζω όλα
comprise
τα
almost
SDGs μαζί,
1.5
γιατί
million
πρέπει να ξέρουμε
research
ότι αυτό είναι
products.
ένα
If we
ολιστικό
combine all
συστημικό
these things
framework,
together, because we talk
κανένα
about a
SDG
holistic,
δεν είναι
comprehensive framework,
πλήρως εφαρμόσιμο
no
χωρίς τα άλλα
single
SDGs
SDG
να
can be
έχουν εφαρμοστεί.
implemented if all the others
Το
are not
unit
implemented.
που αφορά στο atmospheric
The unit
physics
that has to do with
επίσης
atmospheric
βασίζεται στην
physics
Ακαδημία
is also
Αθηνών, που
based
είναι
on the
σημαντικός
Academy of
contributor στο
Athens.
Intergovernmental
This academy
Panel
is
on
a key
Climate Change, το
contributor
IPCC report,
of
με
the
ήδη
IPCC,
αρκετά projects να το υποστηρίζουν. Το
already
Climate
measuring
and
numerous
Energy
projects
Systems
supporting
Modeling
that. We
επίσης
also
έχει
have
ήδη
the Climate
αναπτύξει
and
πολλά
Energy Systems
μοντέλα
Modeling Unit that
για
has
να
developed
κάνει τη
numerous models
μοντελοποίηση
that
του
will
ενεργειακού
enable the
συστήματος
modeling
και
of
πώς
the
αυτό
energy
θα
system
γίνει ένα ενεργειακό σύστημα
and
που
the way in which it
καθορίζεται,
can
που
become
βασίζεται στην
an
καθαρή
energy system
ενέργεια.
that relies on
Το
clean
unit που
energy.
αφορά της χρήσης γης και
The
το
unit
κλίμα,
that has
πάρα
to do
πολύ
with land
σημαντικό
use
και
and
αυτό για
climate
τις
is
επιπτώσεις
equally
στο κλίμα, με
important
πάρα πολλά έργα
regarding the
και πάρα
repercussion and the
πολλά
impact on the climate
μοντέλα.
with
Εδώ πέρα
many
σημαντικό
models, many
ρόλο παίζει
projects.
η κτηνοτροφία,
And of course, livestock breeding holds a
τα
key role
δάση,
here.
οι λίμνες,
Forests, lakes,
η βιοποικιλότητα και οι
biodiversity
επιπτώσεις
are
του
equally
κλίματος σε
important
αυτά,
along
καθώς
with the
επίσης
impact
και
of
η
climate
μείωση ή η
change on
αύξηση
that,
αυτών,
as
τι
well as their
επίπτωση
reduction
έχει
or increase and
στα
the
ακραία
relevant
καιρικά φαινόμενα που
repercussion on extreme
σχετίζονται με την
weather
κλιματική αλλαγή.
conditions that are
Climate
linked
and
to
health,
climate
επίσης
change.
πολύ σημαντικό,
Now,
ποιες είναι οι
climate and health,
επιπτώσεις
that's
της
another
κλιματικής κρίσης
important
στην
unit
υγεία και τη φυσική υγεία, αλλά
addressing
και την
the
πνευματική
impact of
υγεία,
climate crisis on
καινοτομία πολύ
physical and mental
σημαντική.
health.
Η καινοτομία
Innovation,
είναι
that's
αυτή
another
που μας
important
δίνει τη
unit
δυνατότητα να
because
κάνουμε τη
innovation
μετάβαση
is the
στην
thing
κλιματική
that allows us to
ουδετερότητα,
make this
τεχνολογική και
transition to
κοινωνική
energy
καινοτομία, όταν αυτή προσφέρεται
neutrality.
σε
And of course, we
οικονομικές
want
λύσεις,
that
σε
to be
λύσεις που είναι
offered
ανταγωνιστικές
through
με το
sustainable
κόστος
and
των ορυκτών
competitive
καυσίμων και ποια
solutions
είμαστε στη
in
θέση
terms
να
of the cost
λέμε
of fossil
ότι
fuel.
οι ανανεώσιμες πηγές
Today,
ενέργειας, η
we
κυκλική
are
οικονομία, τα
able to
nature-based
talk about
solution
circular
είναι
economy,
πιο
nature-based
φθηνά
solutions,
από
and
ότι τα
those things
ορυκτά
are more
καύσιμα.
cost
Και
efficient
εδώ πέρα
compared
να
to fossil
αναφέρω
fuel.
πολύ γρήγορα και κλείνω ότι έχουμε δύο
At this
μεγάλους
point, I'd like to
accelerators,
mention that we
120
have two big
startup
accelerators
σε
with 120
climate
startups
adaptation, ό,τι
on
έχει να
climate
κάνει με
adaptation.
προστασία από
Everything that
πλημμύρες,
has to
δασικές
do with
πυρκαγιές,
flood
καύσονες
protection, wildfire
και ούτε
protection,
καθεξής, καθώς επίσης
drought,
άλλο ένα
and another
accelerator που αφορά στην
climate
κλιματικά
accelerator
ουδέτερη
that has to
ναυτιλία και
do with
λιμάνια
climate
με
neutral
30
shipping and ports
startups.
with 30
Ένα
startups
από τα
participating.
τελικά units είναι αυτό που αφορά την οικονομική ανάλυση, πώς θα γίνει η μετάβαση
One of
δίκαια, με
those
ποιες
units has to
πολιτικές,
do
με ποια
with the
χρηματοπιστωτικά
just and
εργαλεία
fair
και με
transition.
ποιο
It also provides for
πρόγραμμα
financial tools and aids
επενδύσεων
that
και
will
πώς
be
αυτά
provided,
θα
the
έχουν
investments program,
θετική
and how all
επίδραση
these
και
things can
στην
bring about a
παραγωγή
positive
εξαιρετικών
impact
αναπτυξιακών
on
πολλαπλασιαστών, αλλά
the
καθώς επίσης
development
και θετικών
and proliferation of the results.
πολλαπλασιαστών όσον αφορά τις
And
θέσεις εργασίας.
we also want to ensure
Τέλος,
that we'll also
τα
be able to
National
boost
Living
the
Labs,
jobs
εδώ πέρα
creation.
συνσχεδιάζουμε
Last
με
but
τους
not least,
εθνικούς
we have
stakeholders
the National
τα
Living
μονοπάτια
Labs.
λύσεων, ούτως
We are
ώστε να
there with
έχουν
the national
ownership των
stakeholders
λύσεων
in
και να
order to
μπορούμε να πάμε
design those
άμεσα στην
pathways so that they can
εφαρμογή
have
και
ownership of the
τέλος
solutions
πάντα
and opt
όλα
for direct
κρίνονται
implementation.
από
And
τη
of course,
γνώση μας, από το
everything
πόσο
is being
καταλαβαίνουμε
considered
ότι
on
το
the basis of
πρόβλημα της
our
κλιματικής
knowledge,
αλλαγής
on
είναι
whether we
σημαντικό, πόσο
realize that the
καταλαβαίνουμε ότι
climate
μπορούμε να το
problem is
επηρεάσουμε,
there, is
να
real.
λύσουμε αυτό το
We
πρόβλημα
try
και
to
πόσο
tackle and address it,
είμαστε ενήμεροι για τις
and we
νέες
need to ensure
τεχνολογίες και
that we're up to
κοινωνικές
date
δομές
regarding
που
latest
μπορούν
technologies
να φέρουν
and
λύσεις. Ο
social
συνδυασμός
structures
αυτών
that
είναι
can
που μπορεί
offer
να λύσει το
solutions.
πρόβλημα
It is this
και να μας
combination
κάνει
that can
να
provide
δηλώνουμε λιγότερα
a
για
solution.
ενέργεια
This
που
is
δεν
what
επιβαρύνει
can
το
help
περιβάλλον
us pay
και με
less for
τρόπο
energy that is
που
not a
η
burden to the
κοινωνική
environment and in a way
συνοχή
that
κρατάται
social cohesion
χωρίς
will be
να
preserved and maintained.
διαρριγνύεται. Αυτή είναι η δουλειά μας, με πάρα πολύ
That's what we
χαρά.
do.
Οποιοςδήποτε επιστήμονας θέλει να συνεισφέρει σε
If
αυτήν την
you would
παγκόσμια
like to
προσπάθεια,
join
είναι
us,
πραγματικά ευπρόσδεκτος.
you
Σας
are more
ευχαριστώ
than
και
welcome.
πάλι για τη
Thank you very
δυνατότητα να
much for your
μιλήσω και
attention. Thank you
πραγματικά
for giving me the
στενοχωριέμαι που
opportunity to
δεν
address you,
είμαι
and it is with
εκεί
great pity that I'm
με
not there with
φυσική
you
παρουσία.
today. Thank you.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ και την
Thank
κυρία
you very
Koundouri για την
much, Mrs.
πολύ
Koundouri,
ενδιαφέρουσα
for
ομιλία.
this very interesting
Επειδή υπάρχει
speech.
μια σχετική πίεση χρόνου,
We
υπάρχουν
are
κάποιες
a
ερωτήσεις από το
bit out
ακροατήριο
of
που θέλουν
time.
να
I would
γίνουν.
like to ask if there are any questions from the audience. So I am going to ask a question. I think it is a very important question when it comes to the energy transition. There is the so-called problem. There is the West that wants to implement strict environmental measures in order for this energy transition to happen. On the other hand, there is China and the East and other countries where those economies and markets, they are not committed by such strict measures and requirements. Now, the West has got a competitive disadvantage compared to Asia, and it is also getting worse since the West has to pay for very strict environmental measures that increase the cost of production. And on the other hand, we have our competitors that are not committed by such a framework. And this is an issue that has already been of concern. Dr. Farantouris, would you like to make a comment? Thank you very much. On the long term, policies on the protection of the environment are not disadvantage, but the best and the cheapest energy is the one which is not produced, which already exists. So in my opinion, this is a pseudo dilemma between clean energy and expensive and dirty energy and cheap, because on the long term, the ones who invest in clean energy, they are going to have multiple advantages, not only by protecting the environment, but also on energy efficiency and energy security. If our country is going to invest on that climate transition, we'll have energy, we'll have enough energy security. That energy will be cheap, and we will also protect the environment. I see Mrs. Cohen there by the Israeli embassy. We have a lot to learn from the Israelis since they have invested in cleaner forms of energy. Of course, they take advantage of their mineral resources, but they are developing technologies not only on energy saving, but also on saving a lot of resources. Since we're talking about the agri-food sector, I have seen a lot of good technologies on resources saving and in water saving. The hydrocarbons are something of the past. This is not the future. To mine in order to find oil, this is a very expensive process. And there is a reference that we have found oil around Crete. But even if we are going to find oil now, oil beds, what are we going to do with them? Nevertheless, we need an energy planning, a plan, because if we have resources such as lignite and we try not to use them anymore, that makes the society to come against you. But if you're going to do that on stages, one would have two advantages. First of all, delignitization, and secondly, to have the society as your ally in the energy transition. Today, in Greece, we have societies and progressive parts of the society that don't want to have PVCs installed or windmills installed. And maybe rightly so, because no one has talked to them about that, and they don't see any elements of locality. So, in order to sum up, energy that is produced today by renewables is the cheapest energy. Nevertheless, we have to have a good policy mix and energy mix in order to avoid social disruptions and social turmoil. I am convinced that energy transition is for the benefit of the energy cost as well, apart from the energy efficiency and energy democracy and the protection of the environment. One has to invest in a serious manner and in a planned manner and not in an abrupt manner. Thank you very much, Mr. Farantouris. I know that you are out of time. A very quick comment when it comes to your question. I wouldn't mention China. I would like to discuss to our neighbors across the sea, and let us think about the industries in our country that want to pay for this cost of that energy transition, as it described in the Green Deal, the Fit for 55. And on the other side of the Aegean, industries producing as much as CO emissions they want, receiving money, subsidies from the state. So I would agree with the dear professor. We have to find the right mix and the right time to go forward to this transition. Nevertheless, the gross domestic product, we would like that to be reinvested in the green transition. And in my opinion, sometimes we miss our target when there is someone making revenues, income, and we do not give them motivation to reinvest that money, but we target them as, we criminalize them as someone who is having benefits. Motorola is exporting 80% of its production. A large part of that production is exported in third countries outside of the European Union. We're bringing money in Greece that are taxed in Greece. Bear that in mind, please. Norway, a European country, but not a member of the EU, produces energy, electricity, more than 90% from hydroelectric projects. Norway's energy comes from hydroelectrics. Oil and natural gas, they just export it. They are the largest exporter. Norway is the largest exporter. Now, based on what Mr. Chatzifotis has said, there was, let's say, a mistake by the European Union that we had an unrealistic time plan for the transition towards the green economy. And in my opinion, this was a huge mistake, since we don't have predictions what is going to happen in the meantime. And therefore, societies tend to believe that we are going to wake up one day, we will not have natural gas or oil, and we will have Deus ex machina as a magic solution, clean energy, cheap energy. And therefore, this mistake by the European Union was disseminated to the national governments and then to the societies that this green transition will happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. The transition will be parallel. Nevertheless, the technologies of storing energy are not mature. At the same time, all those renewable sources cannot cover the demand and the energy consumption. If you allow me, in my opinion, the mistake was not in the planning, but rather in the ambiguous position of the European Union, but also by various member states. When Germany is promoting energy transition and at the same time she is importing fossil fuels, you understand that there is an antithesis there. So natural gas will be accompanying us for a lot of time, not only because there is a necessity, but because we have invested in natural gas with thermal units. We have seen that say that this is a transition fuel, but some of us in the European Union, we have it invested in new technologies and in a regulatory framework that will allow for self-production and self-consumption. Professor, your comment? My name is Fanis Yemtos. I am professor of the University of Thessaly, and I would like to make two short remarks. First of all, as you have said, unfortunately, since other countries have managed to have efficiency and security with hydroelectrics, we are a mountainous country and we could create reservoirs and produce hydroelectric energy. We haven't done that. But apart from that, we don't want to install windmills in our mountains and our mills. We are in favor of the renewable energy sources, but we don't want to install windmills when there is wind. This is a problem that sometimes should be discussed in order to find a solution. Nevertheless, what strikes me as odd is that even if everyone is shouting about those issues, we are not discussing, we are not shouting when we lose land that can be cultivated and we can have a good yield. You have said in the beginning about the high costs of the agri-food sector. If one would have high value crops, then that wouldn't be a problem. We have stayed in low value crops, and that's creates the problem. And the future problem is the following. Last year we had high prices with low cost, and some other time that may be reversed, and then we will have huge problems, as you understand. Thank you very much, Professor. Are there any other questions? So I would like to conclude this session. I want to make a last comment on what Mr. Chatzifotis and the Professor Emeritus said about the fact that we haven't invested on time. Based on my experience as a journalist, now we have started to discuss the possible oil beds. However, the contracts with the companies last 8 years, 3 plus 3 plus 2. 3 for research, 3 more for research, and 2 for extracting the oil. And 2 years have been lost because we had petitions from environmental NGOs, and the Council of State postponed the decision, which means that the 3 years of research has been lost at court. And it is this is the first time that something like that is happening. We have been stalling for 3 years in the courts, and we haven't been able to issue a decision. You understand that those distortions of Greece cause us a lot of problems because NGOs might want to block that processes, having other things in mind or other interests. So therefore, now we have already lost 3 years. We will come back in half an hour. We have half an hour break with the third session. So enjoy your coffee break. Thank you very much. Professor, Mr. Farantouris, Mr. Chatzifotis, Mr. Balakaki, thank you very much.